Hello everyone, my name is Julia. I am a certified Montessori teacher, as well as a mum of a 1-year-old named Isaac and a stepmom to an 8-year-old called Asher. Why should you choose to adopt Montessori philosophies at home and perhaps even consider it as an education system for your child? In today's video, I will be debunking 5 myths surrounding stereotypes of the Montessori system, which will hopefully erase any doubts that you may have had or currently had and can help you to answer questions from other people. If this type of content is your style, please consider subscribing and commenting on any of my videos of anything you'd like to see in the future. My goal is to make Montessori accessible to you in your home no matter what your living situation is. Dr. Maria Montessori's list of accomplishments is vast, and if you haven't already, I would highly recommend that you research or read into her life and her philosophies before starting on your Montessori journey at home or investing your child in a Montessori school. As a trained doctor, she approached the education of children in a very scientific and methodical way, which is why her methods, which we now commonly call the Montessori method, were so sequenced and particular. She worked with and encountered some very prolific people, including Gandhi and the famous French psychologist Edouard Seguin. And honestly, her story is very heartwarming. She took it upon herself to treat mentally disabled children, not by running tests on them, but by observing how they operate and learning how to cater to their very specific needs. She then discovered that these children were actually quite capable, and then wondered what effect her teaching methods would have on cognitively sound children. And just before we get into these 5 myths, I do want to share a little bit of my backstory and my experience with Montessori. I was completing my bachelor's at university with the intention of moving on to the teaching program, which over here is a 16-month program after you've completed a bachelor's in a relevant degree. I couldn't tell you 2 things about Montessori education or any alternative education style for that matter, even though at the time, ironically, my youngest brother had moved to a Montessori school and had been in that school for years. Honestly, I thought Montessori at that point was just another version of a private school with fancy uniforms and even fancier materials. Since I have completed my Montessori training, which is a year of intensive study and a 1,080-hour practicum, and have spent over 5 years teaching and assisting in Montessori classrooms all the way from preschool to grade 8. I have come to appreciate the excellent and misleading qualities about the Montessori system. I understand how daunting it can seem to want to raise your child this way, but to not know where to start. So today's video is hopefully going to give you an idea of how you can explain about the Montessori method to others who may ask you what it is, and also some reasonable places to start. This video for me, in effect, is to encourage you and remind you to do what feels right for your child. I said it before and I'll say it again, Montessori is not a diet. You're not going to set your child back if you don't follow everything to the T 100% of the time. Like with anything, the key is consistency, and it's all about finding a balance for you and your family. So whether by the end of this video, you're gonna give Montessori a thumbs up or a thumbs down, it doesn't matter because my goal is complete, because at least you've heard out both sides. Okay, so myth number 1 is that Montessori education is an expensive endeavor which is only meant for the well-off. And yes, I can see how many would think that, as Montessori schools tend to be privatized and the materials that are found in classrooms are so specialized so as to cost a little bit extra usually than your average classroom materials. But let me tell you, that is absolutely not the case. Following the Montessori education is an investment. It's just up to you how you choose to invest, whether in time or money or by other means. Talking about schools, first of all, there are lots of Montessori schools which are called public Montessori schools, which simply means that it is a government-funded school which seeks to use and incorporate as many Montessori philosophies and materials within the classrooms as they can. So if you cannot afford for your child to attend a private Montessori school, see if there is a public Montessori school in your neighborhood Or even if your local school is adopting some Montessori philosophies that you think are more important, for example, following a child, allowing for a child to have a voice and some independence in the class, and being able to cater to specific needs, such as more time to complete a task or being able to move on to a more advanced topic. Secondly, Montessori schools and homes tend to look very expensive because of the adherence to Maria Montessori's belief that a child should be surrounded by orderly, beautiful things that are neutral and as close to nature as possible. It has nearly become a case of niche providers wanting to profit off of people's desire to have that specific look and monopolizing the market. In the same way that certain fashion labels use price tags to try and appeal to a desired look or effect. But you can find those durable and beautiful things in consignment stores or secondhand stores or online platforms that upcycle things. If you are going to choose Montessori to implement at home or for your child, it is going to be an investment in some way. I will keep saying that. It's up to you how you do it, but your average Joe can do it just as well as somebody with a deeper pocket. Ultimately, a child craves a sense of order and for things to have a predictable and unchanging place in their home and in any environment they're in. So when you see these classrooms or playrooms or bedrooms that look beautiful and clean and spotless, it is because the investment has been put in to create that beautiful, natural, calm environment for a child to best practice reaching their full potential. So invest in some way, whether it's time by hunting in thrift stores or researching schools that are available for your child, or cleaning up some things that you may have to refurbish. It's less of the price tag associated with what you provide for your child and more of what suits them, what suits you, and what suits the space that you have. The second myth I'd like to debunk is that Montessori education is only good for children with special needs. To be honest, as a teacher, I've had a lot of parents tell me this because it is supposedly the best for any kid that has needs with attention or extra needs because they're on the spectrum somehow, etc., etc. And really, today, the reason why a lot of people think that way is when the Montessori school system is compared with a traditional public school. Because the Montessori method is centered on following a child in their unique path of learning and navigating the world and creating a personalized curriculum program based on those observations. I can see why a lot of people would think that, oh, this is really great for a kid who maybe doesn't operate at the same kind of pace that is perhaps expected in a traditional style classroom. But just remember that Maria Montessori had success equally with the so-called stupid children as she did with the so-called normalized children in her day. And also remember that every child has needs and has likes and has dislikes and has their own way of operating. It's just a matter of whether you want to make that your priority versus trying to get a large amount of kids in a classroom under the same general umbrella. So no matter what kind of traditions or methods a school adheres to, it's all about how the school can best provide the support that your child needs for their path. So a Montessori school in theory could cater to a child with any sort of special or additional needs very well. But however, they might simply just not have the people power in order to make that support a reality. Here in Canada, most if not all of the Montessori private schools are essentially independent businesses, and so they only receive a certain percentage of government funding, which does inhibit to a certain extent the amount of staffing and support staff available. Additionally, a lot of Montessori schools screen, interview, tour, and have observation days of a child and the family before they will even consider an application. This is done to ensure that the family and the child are all a good fit to the Montessori method and that the commitment will be a long-term one rather than a quick fix or to achieve a certain status. So conversely, you may find your child will actually get better support in a traditional or public school, where they may have more people able to support different areas of what your child may need, whether it's to do with, say, speech or second language development, and the creation of an individualized education plan that is specific to them. You'll just have to do your homework with what schools are around you and what's available and what kind of support your child may or may not need. So ultimately, what I have learned from my years as a teacher and from talking to a lot of parents who have invested their child in the Montessori education system, right from preschool, to parents who have wanted to move their child in when their kid's in grade 7 or even 8. And what I have come to learn is that the Montessori style is not for every child. You need to know your own child's needs and how they can be best supported, and that you as a parent or guardian ultimately know what will best be able to support your child, whether it's at a Montessori school or at home or not. The third myth I'd like to dispel today is that you gotta be 100% all in to the Montessori method and system, or else it doesn't count and you're not truly Montessori. Okay, so this is a tough one because I've been on both sides of the equation. And while I always say that Montessori is not like a diet, there are some bits that are a little more important to commit to depending on your position, whether you're in a classroom or at home. Yes, from a teacher's position in a classroom, absolutely adhering as close to 100% as you can is paramount in ensuring that every student reaches their full potential in every subject area and in their growth as a person. But as a parent, the reality of my home environment is that I couldn't be 100% Montessori no matter how hard I try each day. And honestly, where this myth truly takes any sort of realistic root is in the people who preach about Montessori education like it's the only way and the best way. Then it just becomes a matter of keeping up with the Joneses, which we all know is an unhealthy and ill-wrought lifestyle. That stigma exists amongst schools too. I have had staff members talk down about other Montessori schools in our region because they are not adhering to this aspect or that aspect, or they choose to do things in a little bit more of a public-y school kind of way. Not only is this mentality entirely contrary to the type of environment that Maria Montessori intended to create, which was to create environments that are centered on a child rather than an adult. It also creates classism in education, which in itself is also very unhealthy. And at home, you might have a plethora of reasons why you can adopt the Montessori method in 100% of the way, 100% of the time. Man, let me tell you how much I would love to have the beautiful home, the beautiful toys, and the beautiful furniture that I see posted everywhere online. I live in a city where the housing market is absolutely insane. And also, I live in a house full of boys, and some days we're lucky if everyone's socks make it into the appropriate laundry baskets. Ultimately, I dispel this myth because Montessori is accessible, and it is doable, and what you are already doing or what you have just started doing may just be enough for now. If your child attends a Montessori school and you're sitting back with the full trust that the child's teacher and that the school environment is providing for all of your child's needs and that you don't need to interfere at home, that is enough. If you set up a shelf for your child at home to select activities and toys to play from, and you spend a little bit of time watching them play and seeing how they work, that is enough. If you learn about the different sensitive periods and what to maybe expect during certain ages for a child to be interested in, that is enough. And if you find yourself envious of anybody else's positions or possessions, just look at how happy your kids are with what they have and feel satisfaction. For in the end, it is not what you have that determines how you implement something successfully, it's how you do it. The fourth stereotype I'd like to talk about today is that the Montessori system is in fact too rigid. I feel like this is one of the lesser known stereotypes, but I do want to bring it up because it is something that I've heard a lot as well. And it is kind of a branch off of the third myth that I just talked about, where you need to go all in. But I do think it's an important side note to bring up. Have you ever had anybody tell you that if you commit to one type of computer, say a Mac or Windows, you gotta have all the specialized accessories and other products that are Mac or Windows in order to be the most successful with what technology you have? And if you choose something different, you're gonna forever mess up your system? Well, it's the same with Montessori, and I've often heard it in parents who seem to have some misgivings about potentially putting their child in a Montessori school, or who come for, say, a tour and want to know a little bit more about the Montessori system because they don't know anything except what they've heard. These parents tend to worry that their child will become so embroiled in the Montessori method that they will lose the ability to adapt and be flexible later on with problem-solving techniques that are not using the specialized Montessori materials and methods. And on top of that, a lot of parents worry that they won't be able to help their child at home with any concepts because what is done in the classroom is so specialized. And because they lack the materials or are not educated in the materials and the methods themselves in order to be of help. To which I usually give this answer, that you are choosing an education system for your child that is probably very different to the way that you were educated at school and at home when you were growing up. Yes, the system may seem rigid in that there are very specific progressions to learning any concept, and that the hands-on materials are used for many years in some cases with children before they are able to achieve abstraction. But that it's done in a purposeful way so that a child emerges after learning a concept with a deeper understanding of the whys and hows of it, rather than just being shown the trick and repeating in rote practice. And while it may be very tempting to want to show your child some of these tricks that you've learned, if you've invested your child in the Montessori education, part of that comes with you trusting that it will play out in the end, and that the ultimate goal of the Montessori system is to give a child appropriate tools to be able to problem solve anything that comes their way. And also part of the method is to wean off of all the materials, and it will come in time, in your child's time. The fifth myth I want to dismember today is that if you're gonna invest in the Montessori method, you gotta do it as soon as possible, i.e. like basically after your child is born, or else you won't be able to have the desired effect with your child. Remember when I was talking about my years in university and I had no clue what Montessori was? Well, at the time, my youngest brother had just switched to a Montessori school. He switched in the middle of grade 3 after spending 2.5 years in a French immersion program that was really not working for him. And although it took him the rest of his grade 3 year to adjust, it was more to do with the need to reform social connections and also relearn everything in English, not in French, as he had been doing previously. The physicality of the Montessori method is attractive to kids no matter what their age is. Heck, it's attractive to adults too. When you add sensorial exploration of a topic on top of any visual or auditory learning, it is much more satisfying. It doesn't matter what age you start implementing Montessori philosophies and practices with your child. You just have to make reasonable goals for yourself and just be consistent until it becomes a habit. My last years in the classroom before I went on my maternity leave were in the middle school, and we had quite a few students joining us in grade 7 or 8 who came from public schools and had no experience with the Montessori method, couldn't tell you the first thing about any of the materials, and who quickly came to love the agency and independence and organization that we offered. And I have a stepson, and I've known him since he was 4, which could be considered very late to start any Montessori practices. So we started off very small. We encouraged him to voice his likes and dislikes. We encouraged him to let us know what he wanted to eat by bringing him to the grocery store with us. We encouraged him to practice folding his laundry. He practiced clearing his dish from the table, putting it in the dishwasher, and wiping up his spot. And from there, now as an 8-year-old, he does his own laundry, he loves weed whacking, and he not only clears his own dishes, but oftentimes he'll clean the rest of the family's dishes up and wipe down the table afterwards. And he's showing his younger brother how things work in this family community. As long as what you choose is manageable, you'll see success. Say, for example, you're starting from point 0, which is you've heard the term Montessori, you know that it encourages independence in a child and that It follows a child through observation, and it encourages the use of very hands-on things to do. So here's some things that you can start off doing for ages 3 to 6. Get your child to help with laundry by taking the clothes out of the dryer, putting clothes in the washing machine, pouring the detergent into the machine, turning it on. They can help sweep. They can choose what foods they'd like to eat for breakfast. They can choose what clothes they want to wear. They can practice buttoning buttons, zippering zippers, and clasping and unclasping clasps. Some things you can start off with a child age 6 to 9 is sorting and folding laundry, having a garden of their own to be responsible for watering, or even just one plant to water, and various care for the environment, like picking up garbage and practicing environmentally friendly choices. For an older child, anything that encourages their independence and organization is ideal. Think binders, compartments, shelves, color coding things. Also, cooking is a great way to implement Montessori practical life for any age group, but especially with preteens and teens, seeing as a lot of them are highly motivated by food. And the organizational tools is because for preteens and teens, their frontal cortexes are being rearranged, so they tend to be very forgetful and really need a structure to help them keep themselves organized. I just wanted to end off by sharing that I used to watch a lot of the show Super Nanny when I was in university to just try and give me an idea of how to handle temper tantrums or things that I think to help give me more of an identity of how I would approach certain difficult issues. And there was one episode in particular that stood out and still stands out to me this day, which I kind of made into my standard at first. In this episode, it featured a 9-year-old girl who threw the most extraordinary tantrums. It drove her mom crazy, but in the course of the episode, the viewer got to see that this girl had no agency in her days. Her mom picked her clothes for her, dressed her, and even brushed her teeth. This girl stood in the bathroom while her mom brushed her teeth for her. I couldn't believe that a 9-year-old girl was not allowed to dress herself and to brush her teeth, and I vowed that I would never get to that point with any of my kids. That is the standard that I set for myself way back when. Think about what your standard is today, or way back when if you already have kids. What is your standard going to be now? What is your standard going to be in the future? And how can you realistically get there? Guys, I hope this video has been helpful for you in some way or another. I want you to be reassured that adopting Montessori philosophies and practices at home or adopting the Montessori education system for your child is not a leap of faith off a big cliff into the ocean. My hope is that you will recognize where you can start. That's a reasonable and achievable goal for you in your situation with your family and with what you have. Ultimately, the Montessori method is about following a child, observing their unique growing and learning paths, and being in tune with them so that you can provide what they need to challenge them enough and also help them to achieve success. And finally, you need to have trust in your child. They can do things, that they can be independent and they can be self-sufficient, because ultimately they are going to grow up and become adults in a global community, and we want to give them the tools to be able to navigate their way in a larger community with grace, courtesy, and strength. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you have any questions, please leave a comment below and I will be sure to reply to it. In the meantime, stay safe and stay sane.